Channel 8 Eyewitness News at 5.
You may have been at the bedside with family and witnessed 2 or 3 deaths that week and tried to be there for people.
It's one of the most stressful jobs out there. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us.
Post-traumatic stress disorder may be affecting someone close to you.
It's been identified in emergency room nurses. Channel 8 Eyewitness News reporter Abigail Wood talked to local nurses and brings us more with tonight's in-depth story. Abigail?
When you hear PTSD, images of war heroes tend to spring immediately to mind, but studies show ER nurses are at risk as well. They see death and trauma up close and personal every day. Many will tell you it's a child's death that's hard to forget.
And then people started to hear his mother cry. And that flipped a switch in a lot of individuals. And hearing that, I can still hear it today.
ER nurse Luke Johnston is one of 4 emergency room nurses from the Bryan West Emergency Department who sat down with me to shed some light on what's been termed shell shock in the emergency room, a version of post-traumatic stress disorder that comes from nurses' continual exposure to trauma and death.
We're going to see people on the absolute worst days of their life.
Gruesome wounds, young deaths, families torn apart. Any one of the traumatic events these nurses face daily would sideline the average person. A national study shows that at least 18% of trauma nurses have openly admitted to struggling with PTSD, and that's the ones that talk about it.
I think for somebody to individually come forward and tell me as a manager about their experience, it's very hard because it's part of the job. It's part of the stigma that goes with just being a nurse in general.
Patty Bollinger, a counselor with Bryan College of Health Sciences, says with ER nurses, this is especially problematic. She says nurses have to move quickly from patient to patient, solving problems under extreme stress without a real chance to work through hard cases.
You become robotic. This is what I got to do, this is what I got to do. And sometimes you have to put your feelings at bay. It's an art, and you can only do it so long.
HIPAA restrictions are another obstacle. Nurses can't take their problems home.
Someone has said to me, "You seem very callous and very cold about things," and that's not really my intention. It's just, it's kind of how we deal with things.
The stress shows in a variety of ways. Changes in behavior, nightmares, and irritability top the list. Bollinger says it's also common for nurses to seem distant. She says this is often because, right or wrong, the nurse feels some responsibility if a patient is lost on their watch.
The people that you help, those aren't the ones that bother you the most. It's the people that you aren't able to.
Debriefing after a particularly stressful case can help shift the burden of responsibility off the shoulders of each individual nurse. Bryan Hospital also has chaplains on call 24/7, but the nurses I spoke with say it often comes down to their immediate colleagues who understand the difficulties of the job, along with the reasons they're all there in the first place.
I still love what I do. I mean, there's nothing else I'd want to do besides this job.
The Bryan College counselor told me there's less burnout if nurses take care of themselves, but she says sometimes family or friends need to notice those PTSD symptoms in a way, giving their loved one permission to seek help.